Hello, everyone, and welcome to Neutral Game, your friendly fighting game podcast for newbies. I usually say newbie-friendly fighting game podcast, but I forgot, so I'll tag that in. We're here for new and old, and I'm Six Detmar from Scanline Media.
And I'm Miodrag from Real Soviet Bear Enterprises.
Indeed. We've already investigated what you enterprise, so I really, at this point, we have no more questions, right? I want to have like a fun, playful interaction with your intro, but it's just really straightforward, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll have to have some playful interaction around what we're discussing this week, which is a game that some people would argue is the best fighting game ever made.
At least one person on this episode would argue that, yes.
I definitely think it's in the conversation. I don't know if I think it is, but it's certainly, like, if you had the conversation, if you didn't mention Garou, you'd be having a bad conversation. Because we're talking about Garou, Mark of the Wolves.
Or Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves.
Indeed.
Depending on the region and area, it is essentially the final game, the 8th game in the Fatal Fury series, which I think most people have forgotten because it all kind of joined up the King of Fighters franchise instead.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like part of the way that Garou came about and how it turned out, frankly, so excellent is that SNK had a bunch of other fighting games like Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury, and then they made King of Fighters, right? And in order to make King of Fighters, they had to simplify a bunch of the systems they had in their other games, because they were making this 3-on-3 game, and you couldn't have quite as many complicated systems going on. So they ended up boiling off stuff like Fatal Fury's like background-foreground stuff, where they had 2 planes and you could step between them and things like that. And then after they'd done that, like, in my opinion, and I suspect in theirs, what they realized is that boiling a lot of that stuff off just made for a more compelling fighting experience. That they had a lot of extraneous bullshit that built up, and getting rid of it was good. And so they wanted to go back to make a one-on-one fighting game that didn't have some of that stuff, that was sort of back to basics. And I feel like that's what Garou is.
Yeah, it is definitely trimming a lot of the fat that's accumulated over the years and taking what they've learned from the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of fighting games they've made. They haven't made that many, but they made a bunch.
Yeah. I think they've probably made more fighting games than anyone else.
Definitely. I would probably say, yeah, probably more than Capcom even.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Garou is basically like a sequel to Fatal Fury. It's sort of the end game of Fatal Fury, where Terry Bogard is now acting as like Geese Howard's dead. Terry Bogard is acting as like a teacher, sort of like sensei figure to Geese's son, Rock, and trying to set him on the right path, even though he has this terrible power. And I don't know, story-wise, I don't feel like there's that much to talk about, right? It was an arcade game, and so it wasn't that story-heavy.
Yeah, it's basically a lot of it is. I think younger viewers might be able to draw a parallel between this and Mortal Kombat X, where most of the cast isn't really the old cast. It's like children or prodigies of the previous cast. So like you have Geese Howard's son, you have Kim's 2 sons, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think almost the entire cast here is completely new except for Terry Bogard.
Yeah, Terry is the only character who is a returner, and I think he's also like most of the characters don't end up leaving Garou. There are characters like B. Jeanette, who I think was in KOF 11, and Rock ended up eventually making it the DLC in KOF 14. But like these characters have really been, I would say, underrepresented in subsequent games.
Well, technically, Tezok is also in KOF 14.
No, he's not.
It's King of Dinosaurs. It's Tezok. That's Tezok.
No, King of Dinosaurs is I can see how you get confused, but King of Dinosaurs is a dinosaur, and Tezok is like a bird man. They're completely different. Hey, keep kayfabe. We keep kayfabe on this podcast. What are you doing?
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so I think they used a lot of Tezok as inspiration for King of Dinosaurs movesets, but yeah, it's a different character.
And also, I guess it's worth saying that I think the pirate lady, what's her name again? Bon Janet,
B. Jeanette.
Janet, yeah, she ended up in King of Fighters Maximum Impact, if we still talk about that game.
Oh, yeah, I guess she did, didn't she? I forgot.
I think most people forgot.
Yeah, so it's not like they've been completely forgotten, but I don't know. Given like how the impact I feel like this game had, forgive me for saying impact there. I feel like it's kind of weird how little these characters get represented in KOF, which these days is just like how many references can we fit into one game almost, you know?
Yeah, it's weird because KOF even goes as far as putting in characters from Samurai Shodown of all things. And that's not even like the same time period.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a strange choice. And I also feel like, I mean, these characters are, I mean, a lot of the times, like, you've got characters like Kush Nudbutt, right, who has a great name, and he's kind of just Takuya from KOF. He kind of is just Takuya, so I can see to an extent why these characters aren't in, because they are often not that different from their, like, usually, like, their teachers or their parents, depending on the character, because these are all, like, you know, the new generation. A lot of them are stand-ins for existing KOF characters, and so maybe that's why they're not in. I don't know. Freeman, I guess, is supposed to be like Claw Iori almost.
He's a very low-budget Iori.
Yeah, I guess I said he's supposed to be Claw Iori, but Claw Iori came after, so I guess Claw Iori is supposed to be Freeman.
Also, Claw Iori was kind of bad.
Yeah, no, he was not very good. That's true. He liked the idea, but...
Don't worry, you could buy the proper Iori as a premium DLC for that game, so it was all fine.
Yeah, you sure could. So, I don't know, I guess, like, the other thing I want to talk about a little bit is just, the art design for this game I felt was really, even to this day, really striking, right?
This is one of the, like, prettiest sprite-based games of that era. Like, it is very hard to find something comparable. I guess, like, the closest thing would be Third Strike, since Third Strike was from that era. But even then, like, this has... I feel like SNK has that thing where even the idle animations just ooze personality, so this just ends up looking much nicer. And then they have, like, the stage art where some stages just advance as you go through the rounds, like the train that, you know, goes towards a bridge in one scene, and then you see, like, you're actually fighting on the train while it's on the bridge in the next round, and so on. Like, it pushed 2D so much that they even have, like, fake 3D with their sprite art in a very convincing way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, like, comparing Garou to, like, Third Strike is really, really realistic. And I know that sounds absurd given its character cast, but, like, the way it animates, Garou will use stuff like, it'll have, like, basically like speed lines and stuff, like anime, like, smears and stuff. It'll use that stuff artistically to convey impact and speed, whereas, like, every frame of Third Strike, basically, there are a couple of sections, but for the most part, it just is what the character is doing. There's no exaggeration for impact.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I don't want to, like, leave the impression I'm saying, like, oh, this is prettier than Third Strike or vice versa. It's just that it feels this has aged much better, and it was a bit smarter with its limitations.
Yeah, they're going for a more, like, anime style exaggeration, and I think it really works. And also, one thing I want to point out that I think it does better than Third Strike is Garou's use of color is just spectacular.
Yeah. God, like, we were playing it at the office, like, on Brick Projector, and, like, even though it's an old game, like, people just kept stopping and looking at it, and, like, wow, what's this? Like, this looks really good. Like, they can all tell it's an old game, obviously, but they go, like, wow, this looks really good, like, for an old game.
Yeah, it's really crisp, it's really sharp, and it just has a striking good look that is, like, just a little bit of, like, kind of grittiness. It has sort of that like excuse me, but that street fighting feel to an extent, but like not to the point of being dirty. It just feels grounded, and it's really nice.
Yeah, definitely one of the prettiest sprite-based games out there.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the mechanics of this game, because that's, I mean, like, as pretty as the game is, and as interesting as it is positioned within the SNK oeuvre, I think the reason people talk about it being one of the best fighting games, obviously, is because of its mechanics, right?
Yeah, and it's just... It has so few systems happening, but like they are so easy to understand. It's not like even to this day, I'm not entirely sure in like the latest KOFs like what Neo Climax and what like the various bars do. Like I always have to remind myself before I start playing it again. But this one is like super straightforward with all of its mechanics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first off, we have like it's compared to modern fighting games, it's not as much, but for the time, the inputs were really simple and forgiving.
Yeah, it's mostly down forward, charge moves. There's a few dragon punch moves, but in general, it's not just that the inputs are simple, but it's also that it's not really that demanding. Like, I know when people play like regular fighting games, how they play is, you know, they do some normals and then they do a special and then they do some normals and they do a special, like when they're learning a game. But then, like, the proper way to play it is doing long strings of combos and then ending them with specials. This game kind of plays like how most people who get into fighting games think it plays. It's like, okay, I have my neutral normal moves and then I have my specials, which I do sometimes on their own. Like, I don't have to, like, cancel into them or combo into them or things like that. It doesn't have that much of it.
Yeah, and there are not very many big combos you can do in this game. For the most part, it's pretty short little ones, and you're deciding things based on opportunities, not based on, you know, like maximizing damage usually.
Well, yeah, especially because the regular moves and specials just do so much ridiculous damage anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, but of course, like, it wouldn't be like a fighting game if it didn't have its trademark "nobody has ever done it" mechanic as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in this it's called TOP, which is an acronym, but I don't know what it's an acronym for.
The overly dramatic power.
Really?
I don't know. I'm guessing, but
Oh wait, that doesn't quite work out because you added a D. Never mind.
Well, I hyphened overly dramatic, so it still counts.
Oh, okay. So how does TOP work?
So before you start the match, you have a highlighted section of your health bar, and you pick where that highlighted section will be on which third of your health bar. So it could be like at the start of your health bar, the middle, or the end of your health bar. And what this does is, when your health is in that area, you do more damage, you have access to a special move, which is like a very fast overhead usually, and you regenerate health very slowly.
So I feel like you just revealed the kind of characters you tend to play, because I would say that TOP varies a lot based on who you're playing. For example, with Terry Bogard, his TOP is a combo tool. Oh. It's not an overhead, it's just like a quick little shoulder charge. That's really useful for like in the middle of, yeah, it can make combos slightly longer. Or with my main, who I'll talk about in a bit, B. Jeanette, her TOP completely her TOP is so good. Her TOP is a DP. She doesn't have a DP when she's in TOP. She has a DP.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I just play one of the Kims, whose name I will probably butcher, but yeah, he has an overhead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like Rock has an overhead, but like I think I can't remember. I think they're like characters who have like a projectile. Like what your TOP does is usually what it does is it fills a hole in your game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on the character, it, you know, it determines what type of hole you have. But when you're in TOP, you are a more complete character with more options, and it's really potent.
You could say you're at top form.
I think you could say that. Um, and one of the things that I think this game makes this game really special is the way top synergizes with Just Defend.
Yes, because Third Strike had a parry system. This game kinda almost has a parry system. It has an instant block, where if you block at just the right time, usually like just before the damaging attack or projectile connects, you will do a Just Defend. And what a Just Defend is, it will slightly regenerate your health, and it will let you cancel into moves from that guard, so you can guard cancel. And I believe also you usually can't block in the air, but you can just defend in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And the way this synergizes is, of course, if you lose health and you end up outside of your top segment, which was, with the start or the middle of your health bar, you can regenerate health back into it.
And you can even also have times where, like, as on B Jeanette, I'll talk about it more in a minute, but I almost always put my top in the middle 33% of my health. And there are times where I will intentionally not just defend because it would take away my top.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I would regenerate over my top, and then I would be unable to access that move, which is really crucial to my game plan.
Well, also especially because some strings or combos or like supers can deal more damage than a third of your health. So if you are, say, in the middle, if your top is in the middle section, somebody might be able to bypass it if they take the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So the way that ends up working out is I feel like between that and top and the shorter combos is I feel like there's a really good back and forth in Garou. There's a really good sense of like there's momentum, but the momentum can shift on a dime also in a way that's really satisfying.
One thing I also really like about the top system is usually when you have like loadouts like this for characters, usually it's matchup specific, but in this case I found it mostly to be matchup specific in the sense of not which character you're fighting, but which player you're fighting. So if you're fighting somebody who is like overly aggressive, you might want to put your top like, oh, I get hit a lot, so I'm gonna like put it in my last segment, or oh, I want to rush this person down as fast as I can because of their playstyle, so I'll put it at the starting section. So I found myself like switching it depending on how the opponent is currently like playing in those sets of matches.
Yeah, and there are instances where it's like with certain characters, I don't know. Like I feel like I can't imagine ever putting my top anywhere but in the middle with Jeanette. But like also when I would play Terry, who I played sometimes, I was more reactive to who I was fighting against. So
yeah, and it also like kind of scares people a lot when you are in top mode because it affects your supers and which we'll actually go to in a second, but like they can deal so much damage that they could like I think go through 60% of your health bar.
Yeah. So let's talk about those supers. Everyone has 2, right?
Yes.
You have a punch super and a kick super. They don't necessarily mean you're going to punch or kick with them. It's just sort of those are the buttons that activate them. And I mean, like, I don't feel like I have enough of a sense as to whether there's a trend, like the punch one is usually for this, the kick one is usually for this.
I haven't noticed it, but from what I've played with friends, it seems like one super is good as a reversal, usually, and then the other super is just like you combo into it or you just don't use it as a reversal. Like that's what I've usually found, but again, I haven't played against every single matchup, so I haven't seen everybody's supers used optimally, but at least with the character I play, like one of them is a very clear reversal and you can do it like to punish somebody, whereas the other one is more like you combo into it. And it's also worth mentioning that your super is basically a single bar, but it can fill up twice. And each version of your super, because the buttons in this game are light punch, heavy punch, light kick, heavy kick. You have a punch and kick version of a super, But if you do if you do it with a light button, you only use 1 bar, and if you do it with the heavy, you use 2 bars, and it deals more damage.
Yeah, it's you can, with the right like sort of call out moment, spending 2 bars, you can just completely reverse a match. More than I think like basically any other fighting game I can think of where one super can just completely change the tide of a fight.
Yeah, like a well-timed super can bypass somebody's top section entirely, and if you're in top mode, you can basically turn a losing battle.
So let's talk a little bit about our like play style and how we tend to play this game, because I feel like the different game plans of the characters sort of put together how this game works. So you play one of the Kim brothers, right?
Yeah, Kim Jae-hoon. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but basically the fire-based of the two Kims. And he plays a lot like his dad, like Kim from King of Fighters and I believe previous Fatal Fury games. And that he mostly has kicks. Like, even his punch buttons are actually kick specials or kick normals. Like, he has, I think, maybe 1 or 2 punches total. Like a standing punch and I think something else. And he's one of those characters that seems to have some very solid tools. Like, he has a Guile style flash kick reversal. He has like a high-low mix-up special, and then he has like a guard kick move where he raises his leg, and then that absorbs any mid or high attacks from the opponent. And then when you let go of the button, you just do a flurry of kicks. So he kind of has everything except a projectile. And in general, how I go about it is you have to be patient and close in the distance, especially if the opponent has projectile or long range moves, and then you're just like basically punishing whiffs or unsafe moves and just mixing up.
I see. I haven't played enough with the two Kim brothers to know how they compare. How like the other one's like the electric one, right?
Yeah.
How are they different? Have you played enough to like? Have you seen enough of the other one to observe that?
I haven't seen too much of the other one to know, to be honest, so I'm not entirely sure how they differ. I'm guessing they are different enough, at least from what I've seen the CPU. Like, it's probably just like some moves are more like some moves are faster or just cover different angles.
Okay. Yeah, as a person who just poked at them now and then, I like, besides the lightning versus fire, I couldn't figure it out, but I also didn't spend too much time because they were very much not my style.
Yeah, this character is my style definitely, because I like characters with strong tools that cover various areas. Like, especially because this one also has like a bunch of aerial options. Like, he has like dive kicks, and then a dive kick can go into a low or a high like additional move. So a lot of it is very much guessing mix-ups and calling out opponents' bluffs.
Yeah, so as mentioned, I play and your top is an overhead, is that right?
Yeah, so he has like a regular overhead, which is also a 2-button move, where he kind of jumps in the air and then hits with an overhead kick. But then the other one that he has, the top one, is kind of a delayed overhead, where he raises his leg, like he doesn't jump in the air, and then he kind of surges forward and hits you with the overhead. So he covers a bit of, like, a very small distance in front of him.
I see. So I play Bijanette, who, judging by how her name is spelled, should probably be said Bunjane, but the announcer says Bijanette. I wonder if that's supposed to be how it is, though, because she's a pirate. She's the leader of a crew, and Bonjourne is very close to Bonjourne, which is have a good trip in French.
Wait,
I don't know.
Wait,
Bijanette.
Wait, she's a pirate, and Tron Bon is a pirate. Oh, okay, I see the connection now.
Yeah, there you go. She's a like mid to mid long range character who has like projectiles that like she has most of her projectiles don't do very well full screen, sort of closer to like mid long, as I say. And then she has some other specials that are good for covering that mid distance. And what she wants to do is basically play like a sort of a coy keep away where you're just close enough to think you're going to get her, and then she hits you, and she gets a lot of soft knockdowns. She has a really good backdash, and she just wants to maintain that sort of medium spacing and frustrate you into making mistakes as you try to approach. She's really fun to play. As I say, when she's in top, she gets a really good DP that does a lot of damage. And so, like, you usually don't want to put her top at the start because you're going to assume that at first you're going to be able to maintain your distance, and then once you take some damage because the enemy's gotten in close, you want to be able to use your top to get them off you and go back into your frustrating game of keep away. But yeah, I think there aren't any characters in the game who are like pure keep away, like full screen zoning style. Jeanette is probably the closest you get in this game.
Well, you say that, but there is the boss character who's playable in later versions.
Oh yeah, that's true. I've mostly played a version where he isn't, so I forgot that.
Yeah, Kanar Heinlein, who is essentially... Oh god, I'll let you finish with your character, but yeah, that's like... He has very strong zoning tools. It is like playing a very frustrating German version of Guile.
Yeah. I mean, no, I've basically said what I need to say about Jeanette. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this boss plays?
So I haven't played him, but my colleague has, and essentially what he does is he has a slow-moving projectile that goes in front of him, or that goes as an anti-air diagonally above him. So he has that. He has forward on-hit grabs, like, so if you're close and you're expecting a projectile, he can rush in and grab you. And he has, like, supers that are essentially... one of them is, like, whatever, it's just, like, throw orbs of light from the sky, but throw energy from the sky, but there is one which is, like, a massive orb that works kind of like Venom's orb from Guilty Gear. Except this one chips you out even harder.
Woof. Given what Garou is to me, that doesn't sound very fun to fight or very in the spirit of the game, honestly.
So it's not fun to fight. Like, I would say that was probably the most frustrating character to fight against, but I think it shows how even when you have super range-focused characters, because there is another character, what's her name? It's not Gattu. Yeah, it's Hotaru.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she also has range tools. But even like since I play a character without range tools, I have to kind of go in and close the distance. But because you have to just defend, it is very easy to nullify projectiles with just defend. So while it's annoying to get to somebody because they're zoning you out, if they're spamming it, you kind of get into a rhythm, and you can just defend most of their keep away tools, and then when you're close in, they're kind of screwed, essentially.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And Heinlein doesn't have good get off me tools.
The only good get off me tool he has is that orb super. But honestly, in most cases, I just take the damage, and just or try a trade while he does it, because he's not really invulnerable when he sets off the orb, so you can kind of... If you expect to kill him, you can kill him before the orb hits you.
You see.
But I'm sure there is a way to go around it. But yeah, in general, like, each character seems to have a clear weakness you can deal with, and that you can punish. Mm-hmm. And it's not like playing... Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger, where we had New and Rachel, and you could just sit and watch as you die. Like, it's not like that. Mm-hmm. You feel like it's an uphill battle until you close in, and then you feel like, yeah, I can take this.
And even, like, I've mentioned before how top tends to fill the hole. fill it completely. Like with B. Jeanette, you get that reversal, which is her one main problem, is getting people off of her. It is one of the slowest DPs I've ever seen. If you whiff it, like as far as like, I mean, it hits real fast and does a lot of damage, but if you whiff it or if it's blocked, they have so much time to punish you. So it's not like a perfect solution to B. Jeanette's problems. It just is a solution, and previously she didn't have one.
Yeah. No, it definitely feels like there's always an option, and it's always, a lot of it comes to how you perform. Like, it's kind of weird how to say it, but like when I was doing these matches, like we played for a full week, just Garou, when I was playing with my colleagues, essentially, one person would start winning, and then the other person would kind of figure out the game plan and counter it and then start winning, and then the person would figure out a counter game plan and start winning. So there was a lot of back and forth between like, oh, okay, I need to just figure out how to deal with your new strategy, but it is within my power to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, because the game is so simple. There is no game plan that I've seen someone come up with that is like so like intricate and complicated that you have to like that it's insanely hard to counter. You usually can figure out a way to beat it.
Yeah, and the global tools or just the tools of your character are so robust that you don't have stuff like, oh, to avoid this mix-up or attack, you need to block at this precise moment and then respond with this precise move, or something like that, like what some modern fighting games tend to have. Like, it's always like, okay, there has to be something I can do, and then you just experiment. Like just give like a very basic example. Every time my opponent and I would jump in the air and try to do an air-to-air like clash, I would lose the trade. He would basically hit me before I hit him. And that's because I kept using a specific button when jumping, like I think like a strong kick or something like that. But because my character covers different angles with his kicks while in the air, I just need to find the correct button for the air-to-air, and then all of a sudden, oh, okay, now I'm always winning because my kick hits him before he hits me all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's very simple stuff like that. It's just like, I need to find the right button or the right move, but I can deal with this. Or I just need to, like, do a just defend, and I have enough time to punish for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think just the rhythm of the back and forth and the way people figure out how to beat each other. And it's not just a game that's really fun to get into and really easy to get into. It's a game that encourages you to keep playing because the game keeps changing on you. And obviously the game itself isn't changing, but the way you experience it and play it against others is constantly shifting, and that's really, really enjoyable. Given its simple systems, it's impressive.
Yeah, I have an anecdote where at one of the previous companies I worked at, they had a MAME arcade cabinet, which was just, it was a proper arcade cabinet, but they put in a PC and just a bunch of MAME ROMs. And one of them was Garou. And I played that during lunch breaks against the CPU a few times, and a colleague of mine was like, oh, what you're playing? And he didn't really play fighting games at all. Like, he like maybe tried them every now and then, but he wasn't like serious about it or heavily into them. And he got really into Garou. Like, we played every lunch break for like 6 months. And you could see that even though that was not his style of game, he understood what was going on and was improving and just getting better and better at it because it's so simple to understand, even if you're not into fighting games. And I think, like, for me personally, that's like a testament to how approachable this game is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So I guess one of the things is the game has a lot of ports, and there's a bit of a... I feel like there are some ports to look out for, almost. I don't know, like, when you were playing at work, what version have you been playing? I know you had the MAME version, which is, of course, the arcade version is very good.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, and during this, like last month when I played with colleagues at work, we played the PS4 port because I bought that one. It seemed fine. Like it seems like it's an updated arcade version because it has the boss characters, it has stage select, and it has like a handicap system where you can lower the size of your top bar to make it easier for your opponent if you want to.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but like that one seemed like serviceable. Like I don't know how the online looks because I personally play Garou on Fightgate if I play it online.
That's the thing. The online for any official release is not great. There is no official release of Garou where the online is up to what it needs to be. The one that's been released on PS4 like can work out. I'm not saying it's always bad, but it's often a bumpy ride. I believe the one that was released on 360 and Xbox Live Arcade was even bumpier.
There's also a Steam version, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know about that one. I don't have any info there. But yeah, in my experience, if you want to play online, your best option is to do the Fightcade version, which, you know, obviously it's emulation and it's a tricky legal area, and, you know, be careful. But it plays really fucking well on Fightcade. It plays really, really well.
I'd say if you want to keep your conscience clear, you can always get the Steam or PlayStation 4 version and then just play it on Fightgate anyway, which is what I do. Like, I can't remember, I don't know what it's like, so nobody quote me on this, but I recall because the Steam and PS4 version released close to each other, but they were actually different. So, like, I think one of them is meant to be like, oh, it's like robust with the modes and the options, but the online is really bad. And then the other one is, oh, it doesn't feel like a good port, like it doesn't really have anything, but the online is decent. And I think it was like the PS4 version was the one that had like the content down, but the online wasn't good, and then the Steam was vice versa. But I don't know if that changed or if that's what it was. That's just what I heard. But I would definitely say you can get a contemporary version if you wanna pay it forward to SNK and just play the Fightgate version with your friends because that one is like Fightgate is just really good in general. You can play almost any good arcade game with close to no lag.
Yeah. And of course, if you're playing, if you just want to play locally, the PS4 version or the Switch version they recently released will treat you just fine. Though I don't know. This is one of those games where I think it feels very good on a fight stick, personally. So I would hesitate to get almost any fighting game on Switch, but that's just my personal bias.
This is the only fighting game I play on a fight stick. Like, I generally just play everything on a fight pad, and I can't get into using a fight stick. This is the only game I play on a stick. Because it's not super demanding, and it just feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. So given this game hasn't had a sequel yet anyway.
No.
They've talked about a sequel off and on. I think in 2016 there was an interview around KOF 14 where they released some concept art of the cast for Garou 2. I don't know how old that art was. Looked cool.
They seem to really want to make Garou 2. Like, not necessarily financially. It seems like, oh, we just want to make Garou 2 because they know the hardcore fighting game community really wants it. They seem to really like the game. But I don't know whether they'll make it, because I remember when KOF 14 was announced, they said, oh yeah, we have 2 more fighting game projects happening, and everyone was like, oh my god, Garou has to be one of them. And meanwhile, the 2 fighting games they released were, or rather, the fighting game they released in the meantime was SNK Heroines, and the other one they announced was Samurai Shodown, so I don't know the status of Garou 2.
Yeah, I mean, it could be they're just trying to get their fighting game legs back under them and make sure that they can be comfortable before, do the crowd play. Like, SNK Heroines is a quick and dirty game. SNK Heroines is them trying to make money.
Yeah.
I don't respect that game. So I don't think that was like one of their dream projects. I think between that and Samurai Shodown, Samurai Shodown has a pretty big reputation among people who aren't as big into fighting games, they're trying to establish themselves as a fighting game company again, and then they can go do Garou, which is, for terrible reasons, not as well known.
Yeah, I would definitely say that more people know about Samurai Shodown.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there was like, for a very long time, they wouldn't put rock in anything. Like, people would ask them and they'd say, we don't feel comfortable putting rock in anything until we have, like, I forget, but basically the person who designed rock wasn't with SNK, and he was like, until this person's back, we're not going to use rock. That's not okay. And then he came back and they put rock in KOF 14. And so I feel like that was one of the things that was keeping Garou 2 from happening, and it's kind of back on now.
Yeah. No, I would... man, I really want to Garou too. Like, Garou is definitely one of the fighting games I hold in the highest regard. Like, I don't play it that often, and I'm not that good at it, but it's just a really solid and well-made game.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I know, like, the current issues, like, some people mention, like, oh, the balance isn't that good. It's also worth noting that after this game released, it hasn't had, like, any balance updates. So people have had, like, almost a decade to tear this game apart.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's not like one of the downsides of it being a pretty straightforward fighting game is that it's not like, there are a few exceptions, but for the most part, it's not going to be one of those games where, like, 7 years later someone discovers some insane tech, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like, usually people will just find glitches maybe, but, like, it doesn't seem like it has the room, and this is not like a bad thing, it doesn't seem like it has the room for ridiculous stuff like that one thing I heard about Smash where somebody found Yoshi, like, made Yoshi, like, super top tier years after Melee and years after people disregarded Yoshi as low tier. Like, it doesn't have the wriggle room. Garou at least doesn't seem like it has the wriggle room for something like that.
Someone found a glitch for Link in I think in Melee literally a month ago that bumps him up in the tier list.
Nice.
Yeah. So, like, it doesn't have that many complicated moving parts. That's probably not going to happen. But, you know, a Garou 2 would make us very happy. In its absence, there are places, if you love these characters, where you can see them. We mentioned that, you know, Bijanet's in KOF 11, and Rocky's a DLC character in KOF 14. Capcom vs. SNK 2 also has Rock and has K-Groove, which is one of the different, like, ways you can choose for your characters to play, and K-Groove includes Just Defend. So you can get little pieces of it here and there. I don't know what else. What am I forgetting? Obviously,
Maximum Impact too.
Yeah, Maximum Impact, and of course T-Zoc was used as an inspiration for a completely new, completely unrelated character in KOF 14 and King of Dinosaurs.
I think that's most of it. Like, it's really weird how high on a pedestal this game is, even among its company, because, like you said, we barely see anything else, like, from Garou make it into other games.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a company which put almost every of its, like, fighting game franchises in King of Fighters.
Yeah. Oh wait, Hotaru made it into the PS2 version of KOF 11 also.
Okay.
It's a bummer that some of the roster for some of the, like, early PS2, like KOF 11 and KOF 12 had some pretty cool rosters. They were not very good games.
Yeah, that was them trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and then 13 they found it. But yeah.
Yeah, well, KOF 14 is pretty decent, like, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I still like 13 better, but
yeah,
it's alright. Yeah, I want to see what the future holds for SNK. I hope it holds a Garou 2, but I also hope... I don't know. I haven't played that much of SNK stuff since they became SNK again. I feel like 14 is not as good as 13. SNK Heroines is a piece of crap. I don't know how Samurai Shodown's going to turn out, and I guess I'm worried if they're like if SNK Heroines is indicative of the kind of quality we can expect from them. I don't know if I want them to make a Garou 2.
Well, I guess it's probably best to see after Samurai Shodown, especially because I think I need to play SNK Heroines just so I can like form a proper opinion, but from everything I've seen, it seems like I wouldn't call it like necessarily a cash grab. I would call it like a fighting game for people who don't play fighting games, but not in the sense of, oh, here is a stepping stone so you can get into fighting games. It's more like, oh, we know you don't play fighting games at all, so just have this. And we don't expect you to play fighting games more based on this. That's kind of how it felt to me.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a bigger conversation about SNK Heroine sometimes where it's not just me saying it sucks and actually explaining my opinions, but probably now is not the time.
Probably not. But yeah, please check out Garou. There are many venues to access the game legally and gray area, but there's also ways that SNK get money for your enjoyment of Garou if you feel so inclined. So I recommend it. It is probably one of the simplest in a good way fighting games I have played that still maintain the same things I like about fighting games, which is, you know, spacing, neutral game, mind games, back and forth, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really feel like, I mean, there are other fighting games you can play that are accessible, but if you're trying to get into fighting games, Garou is one of the games that will really teach you what fighting games look like. That rhythm and that pattern of fighting gameplay when you know what you're doing. And for that, it's for letting you really get into the great parts of fighting games so quickly, and keeping that appeal even after you've gotten good. Garou is one of the best fighting games ever made.
Yes.
All right, I guess this is the plug zone. Miodrag, where can folks find your work on the internet?
Okay, first off, let's not call it the plug zone. I did not greenlight that name.
Oh, sorry. That's a habit from other podcasts. In the Garnet Wager, it's an ongoing bit where I find some way to sneak in the word plug into a previous sentence as a goof, and then I say it's the plug zone.
There are many.
What do you want to call it here?
Let's just call it, hey, where can people find us?
Okay.
That seems the safest and least worrisome when taken out of context. Anyway, yeah, people can find me on Twitter. I am at MDKII, that's MDK Roman numeral 2. Or you can find me on twitch.tv/RealSovietBear, where I stream around 4 times a week. Sometimes fighting games, sometimes non-fighting games, but in general, very accommodating. And you get a little bear avatar as well if you join. And where can people find you, Six?
Well, you're selling yourself a little bit short, aren't you?
Oh?
You got a video game coming out soon.
Oh, yeah, but that's my day job, and this is my personal project, so I am not plugging that here. You can check my Twitter for the public plug of that.
All right, fair enough. Wasn't sure your policy there. I guess similarly, I'm not going to promote my day job of working at a Target, so here we are. I'm Sixdettmar. You can find me on Twitter at Sixdettmar. That's SIXDETTMAR. My pinned tweet on there tells you all the podcasts I do. It's too many. I also write articles now and then. I'm working on reviewing Red Dead Redemption 2. You should really feel sorry for me for taking this assignment.
Nice.
It's rough. Yeah. So, games crit, media crit, except for music, because I don't know shit about music. Hey, check it out.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening in, folks, and we will catch you next month.
Peace.